The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial podcast and fan community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire and Anne Rice's Immortal universe from AMC and AMC+. Abracasazerac, by the way, is the thing that I wrote at the top of my notes.
Oh my God.
Welcome. You like that? All right, we'll get into it in a minute. Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We're your hosts. I'm Joel.
And I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. And Ashley, we are back again. Better late than never. Some life stuff has come into the way. I will admit, I wondered when it went, 2 days after our normal posting time, 3 days after our normal posting time. I'm sort of surprised we didn't get at least a post or two. All right, have you abandoned this show because you don't like it anymore? No, we didn't.
You're not as committed to the witches. We're not as committed.
Wait, no, I think that is fair to say, honestly. Very frankly, even with all of the life stuff, you and I probably would have found time to talk about. Would have stayed up late. Interview. Yeah, between all the other things, we didn't quite squeeze it in. We are here today, though, and we are excited to discuss this episode, even quibbles aside. And we're going to dive right into it. As a matter of fact, we're going to be discussing episode 3 of season 1 of Mayfair Witches, the adaptation of The Lives of the Mayfair Witches, the novel series from Anne Rice on AMC. We are the Articulate Coven, your original fan community and podcast for Interview with the Vampire and everything that comes out of AMC's and Anne Rice's Immortal universe there on AMC and AMC+. Ashley, overall, what were your thoughts on this one?
I felt like I was on drugs, Joel. I was like, did I get roofied right before I started this? It was interesting, and I do think I've kind of figured out how they're going to reveal. It seems like they're revealing the past lives of our historical witches, along with Rowan kind of discovering and figuring out who she is, because we're starting to see some side by side in the storytelling. You can totally tell they're kind of experiencing the same things. So I think I've wrapped my head around that. This show's wild. It is bananas. I was talking to a friend about it, and she was like, well, I haven't read it. And I was like, to be honest, that doesn't matter at all. These writers don't fucking care. So, I mean, I liked it. I think it's moving the story along. This was kind of a slower episode, but it had some really good payoffs in it.
Yes, you are right on the money for me, pretty much. I agree. Finally, I realized, we're going to see parallel stories here. They're telling us Suzanne's story as a mirror to Rowan's story.
Yes.
And we're going to see those, continue to unite and tie into each other in a more one imagines at least a more deep way. I got to tell you, the opening was my favorite part, I think, probably of the whole episode. The opening of this episode in particular was really special. They're clearly doing something with this story with Suzanne. It's not, again, none of this is really a solid adaptation of the written work, but I'm very interested in Suzanne's story, and I'm very interested in this, medieval version of the Mayfair family. I hope they have a good payoff for it, because currently that is the absolute thing that's stringing me along. The modern story, meanwhile, Ashley, it feels like someone's aunt read this book once and told them about it, and then they woke up suddenly one Monday morning and realized they had been hired 6 months ago to write the adaptation for the Mayfair Witches.
And maybe they should have read it.
Their aunt, They can't get their aunt on the phone now. So, it's 100%. Like, all right, well, I don't know. There was something about, he blew trees when the witches died. I think I remember that in there. There was somebody named Carlotta for sure.
It's so soft. It's I was so annoyed. That was something I was like, no, it's supposed to fucking storm when they die. It's supposed to bring the fucking thunder. So I was super annoyed by that. And I don't know. That's something, because I think that's something that's so important in the book, because they make it such a big deal too that it happens when Julian dies, but it's something that's, that everybody comments on. And it was just so weird. I was like, did a bullet just come through that bathroom window? What the fuck just happened?
Yeah. We've talked last episode especially, we talked a lot about Jack Houston and how we feel, a little disappointed in the character of Lasher so far in one way or another. But that storm, yes, that is a moment from the books that's referenced. He always, throws a little local storm when the witch dies, but not like that. I don't know.
No,
I don't know, man. I don't know what they're doing here. Okay, so let's go right there, though, and we're going to jump into this. Spoilers ahead, by the way, if you haven't watched the episode, unless you just have decided you don't want to watch it. And I'll say here, listen, here's the thing. First of all, I'm not at the level of hate watching it yet.
No, I'm not either.
Still out. The jury is still out on whether this will be a good television show when all is said and done. What it is not, clearly, we know now, the jury is not out on this. The jury is in. This is not a good adaptation of The Witching Hour or The Mayfair Witches. So, let's see if they can win the bonus prize. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not hate watching it yet, but
I agree. I'm not quite to that point yet, but man, it's really bizarre how far they've kind of pulled away from it. And I do think it is like a case of people just not being quite as married to the material as the showrunners on Interview are. I totally think that's what it is. Because you're right. It's like a kind of like a watered down sort of sanitized version of the things that you actually see. Now, I say that, and they damn near cut off Deidre's fucking head. She was like a goddamn Pez dispenser in the elevator.
I just kept thinking, Ashley, and every time I go back and think about that again, I saw like a meme of it or something yesterday. How are we supposed to believe that the blood held itself in from the 6th floor to the 9th floor with her head, as the coroner said, almost cut off completely?
Yeah. For real. I have seen crime scene photos of a crime that something like this similar happened to someone, and there was so much blood everywhere. It was everywhere. And this is not that. This is so it should have been like fucking The Shining. Blood coming out of the elevator like that.
Or maybe you could have just let her die like she does in the books and not done a whodunit for the... I don't... Anyway,
well, it does. It seems like a really weird, diversion. We don't...
Yes.
It's like they don't trust the story to be interesting enough on its own, so they're throwing in something that they think we're going to really latch on to.
So this is a sidetrack slightly, but let me just say here that the overall producer of the Immortal universe was quoted in a bunch of different articles this week, but it all comes from the same interview. And effectively what he mentioned was the sort of offhand comment that they're currently working on 3 other Anne Rice series. They've got these 2 that are in active production for future seasons. Mayfair Witches has not been greenlit for a season 2, but the producers are working on what that looks like, working with the network on whether or not they've got the budget for it and the green light to go ahead. Interview is already in production for season 2. They're about to start filming soon. So that's moving forward, but Johnson, I believe is his last name. They say, he says they've got 3 other series in the works, and he specifically referenced the Mayfair history, and in particular their time in the Caribbean. And I thought to myself, or you could tell your showrunners to put all of the book in the show that the book is based on, that's based on the book, and just actually do that instead of inventing a bunch of... there are 3 really good... Well, there are 2 really good and 1 okay book in this trilogy, and all of them are super meaty, just contain multitudes, whole lives, different stories. It just confuddles me on why they're inventing anything for this. It just really blows my mind.
There's 1,000 damn pages for you to choose from.
Yeah, it's like if you adapt The Stand.
Oh, Joel, don't! I'm gonna fucking lose my mind.
You know what would be great is if instead of a flu, it was
oh my
zombies.
God.
And you're like,
they always fuck up The Stand.
Zombies. Anyway. Yeah,
I know.
Okay. So but here's the thing. We're going to try hard. We're gonna listen in the season recap when we're talking about this season as a whole. We're going to do more of this, but between here and there, I am going to try hard not to continue to litigate what the show is not. Let's talk about what it is and what they're doing.
Yes, you're right.
And that's where I want to go here.
Because
there is some interesting stuff happening in that scene that we just referenced with the Lasher's sort of storm going on. we see, first of all, we see Carlotta and the sister who still doesn't have a name, by the way.
We don't know her name
this
yet.
Woman's now been in 3 episodes.
We have no
to varying
clue.
degrees. She still hasn't been... We don't even know for a fact she's a Mayfair. We know who she is from the books, obviously. She's the other auntie. But, like, is she Carlotta's girlfriend in the show? She might be. We don't know.
We don't know. It's a mystery that they still haven't given us the answer to. Yeah, no.
The two of
but
them
that
are
scene was
snuggling in
lovely.
their double beds.
That scene was nice. I really love
I do like that dynamic. It reminded me of the 3 witches from Sleeping Beauty, honestly. Like
Oh, yes. That's a good one. Yes. They're missing the fun one, the fun fat blue one. You need the fun fat fairy
right.
to keep you grounded. That's what's wrong with these witches.
Oh, goodness. But right after that, though, we cut to Cortland. Cortland alone in a bathroom, sort of
being a creep,
breathing heavy. Yeah, being a creep for sure. And he's attacked by Lasher's storm. Lasher uses the storm, breaks through the window, and cuts Cortland's face with a piece of glass. And then suddenly there he is in the room with Cortland. We had speculated about this based on the trailers and Cortland's words in previous episodes. Cortland clearly has had interactions with Lasher before.
Yeah.
He's scared of him in this scene, but he's not awed by his presence or the fact that he could see him or hear him.
Right.
He's spoken with Lasher previously.
Yeah, clearly they have they have a relationship of some sort. We don't really know, the extent of it yet. Maybe that will be another whodunit. But yeah, no, but you can it's obvious that he sees Lasher. He's seen Lasher before. He's scared of him, but he's not shocked that he's there.
So last week I said my read on the show is that they're trying to get us to believe that Lasher killed Deidre. I think the read currently is that they want us to believe at least that Cortland killed Deidre and that Lasher was angry at him for it and was sort of placated by the push in the direction of Rowan.
Hey, it's your 13th witch. Here she is. This is what you've been waiting for, buddy. So that also means that he knows even deeper about what Lasher's intentions are.
Yes. Which, again, sort of aligned with the fact that I am ever less, believing that this show is going to land in anywhere near a faithful adaptation. I think it is very likely now that Julian's been written out of this thing. They've given...
I don't know.
Basically all of...
So here's why I don't know.
Julian's motivation is that he understands what Lasher actually wants to do, tries to do it in the early 20th century, and fails.
Right.
And in the book, there's even the implication that, like, his spirit is continuing the mission through Michael.
So this is the thing that I saw in the cemetery scene in the oh shit, it's in the preview. But I'm going to say it anyway. Stella's name's on the crypt. So on the crypt, Rowan is standing there, and the list of there's like it's Rowan's name is on there, and the whole big deal is like, oh, I'm supposed to be dead. But really, what I was like, holy fuck, there's Stella's name is on there too. So I know it feels like we're at least going to get some of that time period. And it would be crazy to just ditch Julian completely.
I agree. But I mean, this is another one of those things that, like, is not part of Cortland's story in the novels at all. There's no hint that Cortland understands, like, the overall project that Lasher has been trying to do through the Mayfair family. Julian very clearly does.
Yeah.
And, like... And honestly, I think it's been a while since I've read it. We're going to do it soon. There's even more of that in the second book in Lasher. There's more of Julian's story, and I think you get more understanding of, like, how in touch with what all was happening he was. Anyway, boy, I got my fingers crossed. But this episode and that revelation about Cortland...
That gave me hope. That little tease gave me some hope that we're going to get some of our still really great characters from the past. Like, fingers crossed, but that's what I caught, and it made me feel good.
So, some interesting stuff going on back at Cyprian's house. First of all, and I've seen lots of folks
best
in the
apartment
Facebook group,
ever
mention this. Oh, yeah, it reminded me of Daredevil's apartment from the Netflix series, though. It looks like, you know,
Oh my God, that's
they got
hilarious.
a cheap loft because there's a billboard outside or something. But I don't know what they're doing here again. Cyprian himself is an introduced character, and then we get Odette, a whole scene with his sister, and it's like, why do we need... I mean, Michael doesn't even have a sister. Michael's got an aunt in the
He's got an
novel.
aunt,
It's
yeah.
like a non-factor. Anyway, I don't really understand what they're doing. And then I did think right at the end, and again, maybe I'm giving the show too much credit, but one of the things that I said when we knew for certain that Michael was going to be replaced in the show, I said I was hopeful that they brought that like low-born New Orleans aspect that the Michael character brings, Michael Curry's character. And I wonder if through Cyprian and his family, the idea that Odette is here at this apartment makes me think she's probably local, which makes me think Sip is too. There's also the scene earlier where he speaks Creole with the janitorial staff, which, by the way, I mean, like, good on them for trying, and maybe they're hinting at the fact that Sip's from around here, but I don't think your average janitorial staff speaks fluent Creole French like today in New Orleans. If you just walk up and if you do, as somebody wandering around the building, I think the janitorial staff will be suspicious, even if they do. But still, okay, again, giving them the benefit of a doubt, what if they're building here a little bit of that Cyprian is from the wrong side of New Orleans? Maybe even they'll tie into, you know, Merrick's family down the line, which again is a Mayfair side that comes from the wrong side of the tracks.
Well, that would make sense since they're already kind of teasing those sort of crossover moments. That would totally tie into that.
That would be interesting if that was, well, I don't know. We've gotten the hint that we're going to get a crossover character.
Yeah, I think that's still pretty far down the road.
We're supposed to get at least
the
one
Merrick
crossover
side of
this
things.
season.
Yeah, I think the Merrick side of things would be too far down the road.
Yes,
but
you're
I
right.
think that's something that we could definitely hope for eventually.
So I want to talk a little bit about the magic in this series and the universe, I guess, since this series we know is connected to our vampires. Lasher seems to be barred from reaching or influencing Rowan for some reason. He doesn't understand it, and Rowan doesn't even know it. And yet, if she drinks let's call it a Sazerac, if she has a cocktail, then suddenly Lasher can make his way in. I don't get that.
I was really super judgmental about her just taking a fucking a shot off the street in New Orleans, and then I was like, you can't actually pretend, Ashley, that you haven't taken a shot off the street in New Orleans. Even in a test tube, I've done it. Jesus. I was like, who the fuck would do that? And then I was like, you, Ashley, you would do that. You've done that.
It's so unrealistic.
Not in that part of town.
Well, actually, there was that one time. Yeah, right. The test tube lady doesn't wander around in that part of town. You're right.
She's not in that part of town. She's in the quarter. But I've seen her. And that didn't happen to me. I didn't have the craziest second. I didn't participate in the craziest second line in the history of New Orleans.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing there. I wanted to question this second line, and then I looked it up. The group that is actually performing, that's dancing, singing, all that, that's a real New Orleans group. I do wonder how happy they were with their presentation in the episode. It did not ring true to what I've seen and witnessed in person or even in media before. But they obviously were going for a certain aesthetic.
But it was interesting. I mean,
yes,
creepy.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. They were setting up this sort of like creepy, mysterious thing. I loved the I loved when you didn't know if it was real or not. That was kind of all really cool. There were parts of it that I really liked. There were parts of it that I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Did I drink out of the test tube?
Yes, very much so. This episode did very much put you on that opposite foot where you're like, where is up and where is down, and you know, what are we even supposed to be doing?
Right.
Okay, but the broader question for me, seriously, in Anne's novels, her witches are not, most of them are not actually what you would think of as witches. They are generally gifted psychics. A lot of them are telekinetic. Several of them are mediums. Most of them, I would say, are mediums. But,
Yeah.
but what are these witches? I get the sense that medium is a big part of this because the spirit of Lasher and the connection to other spirits seems to be something that we're getting here. But
Well, I was
outside of
getting-
that, I don't really know what they're building.
Well, before this episode, when we were looking in the past, when we were getting that backstory and just seeing kind of hints of that, I sort of had this like witchy vibe from that, like kind of like they're gathering for potions. But in this episode, they made it clear that she's a midwife. They're midwives. And so that made more sense to me that I was like, okay, I was just kind of making this about witch's brew and Eye of the Newt when it really wasn't. And it's just because I wasn't clear on what direction we were heading in, but now I'm kind of on board with understanding that. So I think that as we go along, we'll get a clearer idea of what sort of powers our witches do have. If they're going to imbue Carlotta with any sort of actual power. Right now, she's messing with shit that she shouldn't be messing with. That basement scene about did me in. But I do think that we're on the path for it to be more about being a medium, more about being maybe psychokinetic, and then, Rowan's kind of powers of healing and murder.
I do. Okay. So Carlotta in the books absolutely kills at least 2 people that we know for sure she was responsible for their deaths. I don't think though the book Carlotta would do this to the hired help.
Holy shit, Joel. This fucked me up. I was real bothered by this and that sound. Just the sound of it. And then when the reveal happened and it was that was fucking horrifying.
I think the one aspect of production that is absolutely equivalent, absolutely equal from Interview with the Vampire over to the Mayfair Witch series is in fact the practical effects and gore department. Their blood and gore.
Jesus.
That skull crushing scene was every bit as good, if not better, honestly, than when Lestat punched through the priest's face in episode 1.
Yes, I totally agree. It was worse. It was better / worse. You know what I mean? Like, that looked awful. And I mean, not to really be disgusting about it. Yeah. It was like, you could tell it had been going on for so long because there were the blood was in different phases of drying, which is so gross and crazy. Yeah. But that's how good their special effects team is. Like, there were parts of that blood that were kind of like thick and sort of congealed, and then there were, oh, that fucks me up.
It is interesting to me too, like that. I mean, surely Lasher wouldn't do that without the necklace actually having an effect, right? The necklace must tie him at least to that location,
right?
So
right. I think it has to tie him to the person. Yeah, I think that it's Carlotta doesn't understand. It's not going to keep him in the basement. That asshole wasn't even in the basement. He was probably standing outside, being a creep in the yard.
So I mentioned earlier that I really like the opening of the show. Here's something else that the show does well. I try to find moments to praise when I can. Every single episode so far has ended at the moment that I was personally most interested in whatever that episode had going on at that second. I mean, I guess that's a good trait.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, so like episode 1 ends when the doctor says he's going to wake Deidre up. And as a book reader, I go, "You going to do what now?"
Yeah.
She's not going to die at the end of this episode, and Lasher's going to be freed to go to, and then Lasher's freed before she's dead, and it's about the necklace, not her life. And I'm like, oh, and so as a book reader, I was like, what? Turn the page, friend. Let's go to the next chapter. End of episode 2, Deidre dies in the elevator, and you're like, what are they? They brought Annabeth Gish back just to kill her? I don't understand what this show is even. What even is this show? End of the 3rd episode. We get this moment with Cyprian and Rowan where he's opening his power to her to try to get an understanding of who she is and also give her an understanding is the implication there. And I don't know what they're going to do, but I got the feeling that this may effectively be the moment from the novels where Aaron Leitner hands the briefcase to Michael and says, "Here's the history of the Mayfair Witches." Right? Well, if Cyprian has the Talamascan files, we don't know that for a fact that he knows the whole history of the family, but let's assume that he does. In this moment of, Vulcan mind melding, is Rowan going to like unlock her ancestral knowledge and actually will live some of this history with Suzanne and we'll get more of it? I don't know. Anyway, I leaned forward. I'm like, oh, super exciting.
Yeah.
And then the screen goes black for a second and they're playing the trailer. I was so mad. I'm so mad.
That was super weird, right? It didn't seem like that was a trailer. It felt like it was part of the episode, and it was so like that. I don't know what the hell happened.
Well,
and I don't know why they've left it like that. Why they haven't fixed it? I'm like, surely this was a mistake you made before you put the episode out. Somebody fix this in editing.
No, I think they did it very purposefully because it does, and maybe they're like waving us in the wrong direction. I think it hints to what I just thought myself, which is like, oh, she's about to get to download of the family history. The first line that you hear, and it's a woman's voice, the Mayfair Witches, 300 years, a matriarchal line passing down all of their possessions to their daughter.
Yeah.
Something like that, and you're seeing these paintings too of the older witches, the ancient witches, and so it's like, oh, here we go. This is the part of the book this is my favorite part of the book.
This is the best part of the book.
My favorite part of the show. No, it's just a trailer for next week, and it's probably just like a circle of modern witches in New Orleans that are going to be fighting this witch hunter thing that's coming that I don't want to happen. Anyway, I'm going to try to stay positive.
I will say this about this moment, this mind meld moment, as I think we should definitely refer to it. This moment with the two of them, I hope that in whatever information she receives, that we start seeing her act with some strength and some determination. I think that it's something in the group, in our Facebook group, we've that's been the biggest beef, I think, is just that this version of Rowan is not as, self-sufficient and independent and not as strong in some ways as our Rowan from the book. And I think that that's something that's kind of hard to swallow because it's such a different version of the character. And I've liked a lot of moments, but like she has been a little like sad and whimpery and chin quivering, and that's not Rowan. Rowan can be like that in moments, but she has to come out of it. So I really hope that as she learns more about herself, we see her kind of start to take more agency in the story. I'm ready for things to happen because of her, not just to her.
Oh, me too. I mean, the line that I used when we talked about the book was, Rowan is a subversion of the damsel in distress.
Right.
And Michael is this classic handsome prince, except she don't need him. Like, not really, not in the end.
Right.
And even... Yeah, anyway, the resolution of this book, what you imagine this series working towards, it doesn't really allow itself for a Rowan who is passive, and so far we've gotten a lot of that. Rowan has been battered about by the events of the book as opposed to, chasing activity and agency as she does in the book. Anyway, I'm hopeful. I got my fingers crossed. I don't know what they're doing here, though. If you told me, Ashley, before I saw the trailer for this series that I would be so lukewarm on an Anne Rice adaptation, especially one that was connected to the Vampire Chronicles, I'd have called you crazy. But like,
right, I know,
here
me
I am.
too.
I'm just watching it like a show, man.
I am. I'm not like. I'm not invested in the same. I have to know what's going to happen next. Like, I already know what's supposed to happen next. It's probably not gonna. So I'm just kind of along for the ride. But I realized, too, that, like, now I sound like the people that were bitching about Interview's adaptation. It's just so different. It's not the book I know. And I don't want to be that way, either. I want to be, open to, like, this version of it. So I'm really, really trying hard to have a good, attitude and spirit about it.
I wonder again, based on kind of the way that this show has been building itself out, if Lasher wasn't telling a half truth in the scene where he's getting Rowan to drink the magical shot from the test tube lady, I think he might have been telling her a half truth there in the way that, or actually it's a little bit later when he appears as Deidre herself. All of us are connected through him is what Deidre says there. And I wonder if that's not what they're building towards, because these flashback sequences that we're seeing of Suzanne, again, if I'm right, and Cyprian's going to kind of unlock this thing for Rowan with his power, those flashback sequences may actually play out as Rowan getting the download of the family history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So
absolutely.
she's experiencing those moments as Suzanne. I think that may be the way that they work this thing. That could be really cool. And again, I'm out for good TV. Make good TV, folks.
Yeah.
And
tell me a fun story.
TV that's highly enough rated that we keep getting more of it.
Yes, please, and thank you. That's what we want. Yeah, this one, I don't know. You're right. It is kind of just like I'm watching The Last of Us as well. And when I tell you that, like, I'm like on the edge of my seat, I am on the edge of my seat, like I was with Interview with it, with the show. And I don't find myself in the throes of like desperation as far as like the episode just ended and I have to wait a fucking week,
Yes. And by the way, I've been putting off The Last of Us just because I know the subject matter is so heavy, especially for a father. But yeah. I have heard nothing but high praise about that.
It's
Everybody
amazing.
says it's a great adaptation. Everybody says it was a great story to begin with in the video game. So distilling that down into, good live action TV should be really, really great. If you're in for this one and you've got HBO Max or access to HBO, you probably want to be checking that out too.
I highly recommend it. It is fantastic.
Ashley, before we wrap up, I want to continue our new trend, at least for a while here, as long as I remember it, of reading a review of the show from Apple Podcasts in this case.
Hey, thanks for reviewing, guys. We appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. This comes from Cheetah for Sale. New fave, 5 stars, obsessed with the new Interview with the Vampire series, and so glad I found this podcast. The host knowledge of Anne Rice lore adds so much to the discussion. Can't wait for Mayfair Witches. Cheetah for Sale. How's that weight going? How do you feel now, friend?
Yeah, how do you feel? Let us know. Let us know how you're feeling. And help us. If, like, you are into this, guys, if you are like, no, Ashley, no, Joel, you're full of shit. This is amazing, and this is why. I need you to tell me those things so that I can get as cranked about it as you are.
You know what? Somebody did post. Let me pull this up because I don't want to overlook this, and I want to give credit where credit is due. Someone posted in the Facebook group earlier. There is someone on Twitter, which I am no longer on, but I did click through this link and check out some of their... Yeah, okay, here it is. Haha, I knew I could find it. On Twitter, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes as well. The handle is @tail T reading. They do apparently episode-specific breakdowns in threads
excellent.
On Twitter. And they're very, very good, honestly. They made a lot of really interesting points. For instance, here's a perfect example. I'm going to read this off at the top. Okay. In the opening scene in Scotland, first of all, they have the name of the woman who is speaking to Suzanne, presumably her mother. Alf, I think, is how they say her. I don't believe it's ever said in the episode. Maybe they got that from the caption.
It was because I saw it in the in the subtitles.
Oh, there you go. So that woman tells Suzanne that she wants to fly with regard to henbane. So black henbane, or stinking nightshade, is another name for it. It's a poisonous plant, along with aconite, which was mentioned in episode 2. Those are two of what people call the witching herbs. Folklore, especially Christian witch hysteria, attributes henbane to be one of the ingredients in the flying ointment when mixed with the fat of unbaptized babies, supposedly allowed witches to take to the sky. Per Francis Bacon, he wrote that. Henbane is hallucinogenic, and it's speculated that it was used in early medicine to mitigate pain. Basically, you'd get them real high. They would fly psychoactively to avoid the pain that their body was going through. So that is apparently the implication there. And again, that's like subtext that you wouldn't have picked up on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of things there, apparently, that the writers are trying to do if you dig deep enough into it. And some of those are coming through in these threads. Check this out. I'll put a link in the show notes, especially if you want to look for the positives in this show and you want to look for the little moments where they do pull things, not necessarily from the books in this case. Most of this thread does not pertain to the novels themselves. But there are a couple of references that she found that I was surprised by. Oh, I didn't realize maybe that is a little hint in the direction of the books. So again, I'll put that note in there and check it out. Keep up with them if you're still on the tweeters.
That's awesome.
Ashley, anything that you have to add before we wrap up for this week? We'll be back quickly as we get ready for episode 4 coming up this weekend.
I do think I'm very excited about the next couple of episodes because the momentum is pushing Ro into the house, and I'm ready for that house to be involved in this story more. I'm excited for her to get home and to start seeing what's going to happen once she's in the house with the Mayfairs. You know, they're going to throw this wake. We're going to have this funeral. So I'm very interested and excited. I'm excited to see what's going to happen when we have everybody in that creepy house together.
I also have been, I've been given a renewed excitement for the next couple of months because it's sort of like it's gotten back into my head that as soon as this show wraps, the trickle of information, news and rumors and speculation and announcements all begins to drop about not only season 2 of this show, potentially season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, but also, again, those other 3 series that AMC is working on. They're going to want to get at least one of those into production, if possible, in between now and when season 2 of Interview with the Vampire drops, just so you can begin to have a steady cadence, and the Anne Rice fans will be always needing to stay subscribed to AMC.
Absolutely. The other thing I'm looking forward to is we still have books to read, in our downtime from the shows. We have, we'll be picking up The Vampire Armand and rolling with that here pretty soon. So, there's always something for us to look forward to.
Speaking of books to read, since we often do mention a TV show that we've watched that we really enjoyed, which, by the way, I will probably be mentioning next week or on next episode, my thoughts on Mithrigan or Megan, I think, if you want to pronounce it properly, the new movie that came out about the killer robot.
I can't wait till you tell me about it.
From way back in the day. That movie looks fantastic. I've got it the other day on digital, so Kelly and I are going to try to watch it soon. But what I wanted to reference in this episode and tell everybody just a little bit about and kind of recommend, I've been reading an excellent book. We just took this trip last weekend to New Orleans, and on the drive down there and back, it's about 4.5 hours for us each way. And I listened to a ton of this book there, and I'm trying to maybe finish it this next week. This is a book by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And I'm way behind on this. I think the curve is way ahead because there's already, the 3rd book is about to drop at the end of this month, I think. But the series is it starts with the book Children of Time. It's Children of Time, Children of Ruin, and I can't remember what the 3rd one is called that's going to drop the end of this month. But they're sci-fi books. This writer is brilliant. He's written a short story, a novella that came out this year that's a mix of fantasy and sci-fi that people have been praising. It's been on a bunch of like best of the year-end lists sort of thing. I've got that loaded up on my Kindle when I get done with this series. But this series, particularly if you've ever been a fan of like the Planet of the Apes series, I think this one is for you. It's not like Planet of the Apes, but if that sort of speculative fantasy and sci-fi tickles your brain, I think this is gonna be right up your alley too. So I'll put a link for that in the show notes as well.
Excellent. We love a series.
But when I wrap this one up, I agree. I'm 100% with you. But when I wrap this one up, before I go to the sequel, as Ashley referenced there, I am going to be moving on to, are we going to do The Vampire Armand, or are we going to do Pandora first? Which did we decide?
I thought we said we'd do Armand first because of the
That's
end of the
right, just
season.
to make sure we get it between seasons. Yes.
Yes.
The season Interview with the Vampire ended with a a heavy Armand influence, we'll go to that novel next. So I'm going to finish this Tchaikovsky novel. I'm going to move on to Vampire Armand. You can join us there. And then when we get that episode out, we'll move on to Our Lady Pandora.
Oh, can't wait.
It holds a special place in both of our hearts. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. That's your homework, folks. Get ready. Watch the fourth episode of Mayfair Witches and join us again next weekend. Until then, we've been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. You can join our community on Facebook by following the links in the show notes or searching for Articulate Coven on Facebook. You can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or at articulatecoven.com. And share us with your Anne Rice-loving friends.